friends, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk today about PCOS and infertility, and I already recorded this entire video and it was really good and it was really helpful for me, and then I realized that there was no sound, and I just feel like there's stuff trying to prevent me from sharing this, because I feel like it will hopefully be really helpful. And so warning, I've already been pretty emotional and crying in this video, and it's felt very vulnerable, or in the video that you won't see because there's no sound. But my intent is really just to talk about PCOS and my journey kind of with it. And when I first got diagnosed, it felt very hopeless, and I was searching for content like what I'm hopefully going to create, just hearing, you know, somebody's experience in like an authentic and a real way, and that's what I'm hoping to share. So I was caught off guard and surprised before on how emotional I was getting, but it's just something that I feel very passionate about, and it's really important to me, and I feel like it's been something that's really pushed me forward in doing some cool things in my life. And so I think that's why those emotions are there, and I just want to be honest with them. So with that, it's funny because sometimes when I do things, the second time ends up being better anyway. If I'm like writing a paper or writing a post or something, I've had this type of thing happen before, and then it ends up turning better in the second go around anyway. So that's what I'm praying and I'm hoping for in this case. I also want to say I'm not a doctor. I'm not a clinical provider in any way. So take what I say, keeping that in mind. I will say though that if you have any opposition or providers that kind of doubt you or kind of dismiss you, especially when it comes to PCOS, it might be a red flag and a good opportunity just to look for a different provider. I feel like more providers are educated and know a bit more about PCOS within the last few years. It seems like that's the case. But be an advocate for yourself. If you bring these concerns to your provider and they just kind of write you off and dismiss you, it might be time just to look for another primary care provider or an OBGYN. And that's something you can ask for when you're establishing care with somebody new, is if they have experience with PCOS or hormonal disorders or metabolic dysfunction. Those are kind of the three key things I would ask for when searching for a new provider to help me with this. So luckily my provider was really informed and knowledgeable, and she was really helpful in with this experience. So just something to throw out there. And again, I'm not a doctor. So polycystic ovarian syndrome, or PCOS, is an actual hormonal disorder, and there's three main criteria that are applied to this diagnosis, and I'll go ahead and list them right here. I'll scoot over a little bit so I can put them on the screen. The first main criteria is irregular or non-existent periods or menstrual cycles. The second is having actual cysts on your ovaries, which that one kind of makes sense, right? Because it's in the name. And then the third one is actually higher androgens, and androgens are the things that contribute to male characteristics. So for me, at least, it's been excess hair growth like around my chin or other parts of my body that I don't want it. Higher levels of testosterone, I've had that as well. And then there's also associated diagnoses or disorders that usually go in hand in hand with PCOS. So obesity or excess weight. There's also thyroid issues a lot of times that can be present. Endometriosis is another one, and I'm not super familiar with that because I don't have that. But there's lots of things that are kind of wrapped up in PCOS. The other thing I want to call out is that just because you only maybe have one of the criterias, like let's say that you have irregular or non-existent cycles, but you don't have cysts on your ovaries or higher levels of testosterone or facial hair growth or whatever, it doesn't mean that you couldn't have PCOS. It just means that you don't have to have all of them to indicate that you have PCOS. Sometimes people have one of them, sometimes people have all of them. Some people only have two. So again, if your provider isn't informed on this or doesn't know information about it, advocate for yourself, maybe check in with a new provider. So talking a bit about my story, I was diagnosed in December of 2020, and when I was first diagnosed, I felt devastated. I felt hopeless, and I have always wanted to be a mom and to have kids, and some of the initial information that I feel like just rang in strong for me when it came to being diagnosed is now I won't be able to have kids again. And some of the thoughts that came into my head were like, your body isn't good enough, your body's dysfunctional, it's literally working against you and working against the goals that you have to be a mom. And so it was really devastating and hard. And also too, there was for me a sense of relief of knowing, okay, well, at least now I know why. I know why it's been difficult for us to get pregnant. I know that there's a reason. And if you're feeling any of those things, I get it. I was there, and I it's emotional because I can put myself back in that place where it was a really hard time. And I just want you to know that there is hope, and there are options out there, even if it doesn't seem like it, or even if your provider didn't give you options. There are options on healing and feeling better and having kids naturally. And I just wish I had had more of that hope going into my journey and being diagnosed. So being that my diagnosis kind of came from me trying to get pregnant, again, I had those thoughts of, oh no, now I won't be able to conceive naturally, all of that. Now I feel really hopeful. It's been 2 years from when I'm filming this. It's been 2 years since my diagnosis, and a lot of stuff has happened in between that I'm hoping to share on this platform. But there is hope, and I feel much more hopeful about it. And it's just taken time and a lot of other things in between to kind of get to that place. After I got diagnosed with PCOS and I started, going into my research spiral of looking up everything on the internet that there was to know about it, one of the common themes and trends and things that doctors are saying, and it seemed like I was getting it from all angles, is, well, if you just lose excess weight, it'll fix everything. And it's like, that just felt so frustrating and annoying, because I'm the type of person, I'm very determined, and I do have a lot of self-control, and I have been able to accomplish really hard things in my life, as far as like going to school. That was a really hard time. Working. There's just been several things that I'm really proud of that were hard that I was able to accomplish, and having excess weight has always been one of those things that I have always struggled with. And no matter what I've tried, getting wrapped up into this like diet culture, losing weight, starving myself kind of mentality, like I've been so wrapped up in that my whole life. And so just to have it again kind of like thrown in my face of like, well, if you just lost weight, all your problems would go away. It was just very annoying and frustrating and aggravating. And so, one of the things I saw was that, if you just lose 5 to 10% of your body fat, your symptoms will get better. And yes, that's true. And it also feels very defeating when you're just trying to like get a grasp on what PCOS is, and struggling with all of these other things. So in that kind of spiral of trying to lose weight, because that's what everyone said you need to do, I went through a season of eliminating different foods. And so I did a season of eliminating gluten and dairy from my diet. And up till that point, I hadn't really had a cycle. I also didn't mention, but for me, I have all three criterias present for PCOS. And so one of those is that I had irregular cycles or non-existent, depending on the season of my life. And so in that season, I think I had gone like 6 or 8 months without having any sort of period or cycle of any kind. And so when I started doing gluten and dairy-free foods and incorporating that in, it was actually when I got my period back after that time. So I'm grateful for that, because it was in that season that I was able to get my cycle back. And since then, it hasn't been completely perfect, but I have been more regular than I was before. So that was really cool. One note of caution I also want to share is, as I was doing a lot of this research and looking into it, as you can tell, this is a very sensitive topic, and it puts me in a very vulnerable place, because it's something that's really important to me. Being a mom is a really big dream of mine, and that's why it's emotional and why it feels very important to me. And just be careful of the content that you look at and the people you follow. I know that I was kind of preyed on in that way, and I don't think it's intentional a lot of times, but selling me on, oh, if you do this diet or this workout program, or you eliminate these certain foods, if you do these things, your PCOS will go away. And in my mind, that equaled, okay, if I do this diet and eat this certain way, that means my body will be ready to have kids, and that's what I want. And so I kind of got into that spiral of trying different things and kind of buying into that lie, really, of that there's only one way to do it and it's the right way for everybody who has PCOS. And so I would just encourage you to feel empowered to discern what's best for you. It's so different for everybody, and so that's why I never want to come across the way I did it is the best way or the only way, because you know your body. Even if maybe there's not a solid connection right now between your heart and mind and your body, ultimately you know it and you own it. And so I guess that's just something I wish someone would have kind of told me, to just be cautious, guard yourself in that way, do your own research, make up your own decisions for yourself. Don't get swindled into this way of thinking of, if I do this, this, and this, it'll get to what I need to. No, you know what you need to get to, and sometimes it just takes time to figure that out. So I did gluten and dairy free for about 6 months, and in that time I lost a little bit of weight. It's not really significant to talk about that, because it didn't really change my body in a long-term way, because I'll explain that in a minute. But so I did lose a little bit of weight. I did get my period back, which that was a huge win in that time. And then I started looking into more pro-metabolic eating, and I'll put right here some of the Instagram handles that were really helpful for me in that time. And what they really helped me with is learn about the nutrients that our bodies were kind of created to consume. And again, people have different opinions, and that's totally fine. That one, learning more about pro-metabolic lifestyle is what really connected though with me, and what I felt was really helpful. And so I'll also put in the description those other platforms that kind of highlight and talk about that, because that's been really helpful. So in that time of learning more about that, I actually ended up gaining all of the weight that I had lost, which wasn't a significant amount, but I did gain it back plus more. And looking back, a lot of that I think was because I had a lot of mental and emotional baggage that I was holding on to, and my physical body was just a representation of that, where it wasn't that my body was working against me, it was actually trying to protect me, and that's what it had been doing this whole time, where I had a lot of emotional and mental things that I needed to work through. And I was holding on so tightly to that, not wanting to, and it was my body's way of protecting me in that. And my physical weight was also a representation of that. And so that's what I needed in that time. As I was learning more about the proper nutrients for my body, what I felt good eating, or what foods made me feel good and made my body feel good, I started having more conversations with people about bariatric surgery. And I kind of mentioned this in my first video, but there was this sense of pride that was really holding me back from going down this avenue. And what really made me consider it is looking at research about women with PCOS who have bariatric surgery and those outcomes. So in the description, I'll link some of those articles that were helpful for me. But what I learned is that there have been studies done that show that women who have PCOS, when they get bariatric surgery, they can have very healthy pregnancies and babies. And that, again, because that was such desire and driver for me, that was always a concern of, well, even if I get bariatric surgery, I don't know if that means that I can get pregnant after that. And so what the research has shown, the recommendations are kind of different across the board, but really what they recommend is 12 to 18 months after bariatric surgery, it's safe to try to conceive. And so I'm not at that point yet. That's why we haven't been trying. But that also just gave me a sense of hope of like, oh, so even if I got bariatric surgery, there would still be the chance that I could conceive naturally and have a healthy pregnancy and a healthy baby. And one of the major risks that came out, and again, it's in the research, do your own research, don't take my word for it. But in the research, it showed that one of the main risks of that is malnutrition for your baby, which makes sense. If you have, having bariatric surgery means that you aren't consuming, you physically can't consume as many calories as you did before. And so, if people get pregnant too early and they haven't worked back up to eating more of a normal amount of calories or nutrition, then that can in turn kind of affect the baby, because then the baby's not getting enough nutrition and the baby can be born prematurely. But that was the major risk I found when I was looking into it more. But then when I looked at the risks of where I currently was with my health, of having, carrying a baby and having a baby, I ran the risk of having, I'll list them here because it was eye-opening to me. I ran the risk of having diabetes during pregnancy because of my excess weight. I wasn't pre-diabetic at that point, but my blood sugars were kind of trending in that direction. So that could have sent my body into having diabetes. I could have had high blood pressure, and not to mention just overall like pain in my body. At that point of looking into bariatric surgery, I was starting to experience and feel the aches and pains that were associated with having excess weight. And so with that, I was like, there's so many more risks actually trying to get pregnant where I'm at now compared to if I get bariatric surgery, wait a little while and then try again. There's actually less risks associated with that. And with that, like aches and pains and just hurting, it was like I kind of felt like, damn it, like I have waited this long to be pregnant, and it's what I've been wanting for so long. I want this to be the best experience possible. Like I want to enjoy it and not have to feel like I have to be in bed all the time or comforting my body because it's hurting from carrying another human. And inevitably, I know that's bound to happen in some regard, but where my body was at that point, if I had gotten pregnant, it would have been really, really hard on it. And so that was a good realization to have. And again, do your own research. I'll link some of the articles that were helpful for me, but that I think was really a turning point to going, oh, I think this could really work, and I think this might be what's right for me. So in the next like sit down video I want to talk more about the bariatric surgery journey, but this video I'm sure is already kind of getting long, and so I'll put a pin in that and kind of cover more of that experience. But right now I'm about 3 months post bariatric surgery journey, and my symptoms are starting to alleviate, and it feels really good. My thyroid issues have improved where I don't need medicine for that anymore. I'm not having those same like aches and pains in my body. My blood work is significantly better, and my cycles are still working on becoming regular. My hormones are kind of all over the place and just trying to work overtime to meet this physical change that's happening to my body. So my periods aren't regular yet. There's still kind of a lot of stuff happening within that, but I'm feeling really good, and I'm in a much more hopeful place now. So for my particular program, they recommended that I wait 18 months before trying to conceive, and I'm only 3 months post-op. And so that's what my husband and I have kind of agreed on, that I'm actually really excited to have that time for my body, just to kind of let it heal, let it gain some stability before putting in, having a baby and having a lot of instability kind of happen to my body. So it'll feel good to just kind of live in that for a little while, let my weight stabilize, continue to incorporate more nutrient dense foods. And so having that time period before, I thought it would feel very like I have to wait even longer. I've already waited, all these years to conceive, and that's something that also kind of prevented me. But I'm actually excited for this time, and it feels good just to not have that pressure and just to kind of focus on my body. So anyway, all that being said, that's what my surgeon recommended. Different surgeons recommend different things after bariatric surgery, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. So I think the overall message that I want to communicate is that this journey has been really hard, and it's been really painful, and there's been a lot of low points in it, of feeling hopeless and like there isn't going to be a better way to move forward. And I just wish someone had told me back then that there is hope, and there are lots of different options available to help this. You don't have to be in this space forever. Your body is doing something that is trying to protect you and help you, and your job is just to lean into that and do what's best for you and pick up resources along the way. But ultimately, you be the advocate for yourself, and do what you need to overcome it. And this was very vulnerable for me to share, but it's worth it if it helps. If it helps somebody, because just know you're not alone. It's hard, and there's hope, and that's just kind of the message that I wanted to communicate. So thank you for listening, and it was really helpful for me, and this was obviously for a purpose. The first go around was maybe just my own form of a therapy session, and this was hopefully something that can help. So be well, be kind to yourself, and I'll see you in my next video.